Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, but we are getting off the Bruce train tonight, though he will come up as he normally does. And I am talking to a fellow podcaster. We're going to talk a little music. We're going to talk about an event that is coming up in a couple of days. So, Western Wonder, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to visit with you and kind of talk about us. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I actually have a separate podcast of my own, not exactly this event, but It's called the Western Reviews Podcast. It features reviews of a variety of different movies and shows from various decades. And I've been doing this for a bit of a while. And ever since starting this, I've actually had stemmed off into a music themed podcast, which while it is on the back burner at the moment, I plan to resume very, very soon. And that one, that podcast is known as Two Grumpy Music Snobs. I actually do both of those voices. It's a parody of two old men voices as snobs that like to talk about various artists. Some they might not like, some they really do like. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, so that talks about you as a podcast, talks about you as a person. So tell us a little about yourself. Where did you grow up and what kind of music did you listen to as you were growing up?
Well, I live down here in the South and I've been raised down here all of my life, basically. But in terms of music taste, since this is a music podcast, I've listened to a variety of different genres growing up. Early on, my preferred kind of genre was mostly a mixture of rhythm and blues, R&B, gospel, that kind of thing. But since then, I'm a little bit more open to a variety of different genres. Through my parents, especially.
Yeah. What kind of, where down south?
South Carolina, actually, as a matter of fact.
Very
right down
nice.
the middle, between the Carolinas.
Yeah. All right. I spent a lot of my time growing up in Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
So definitely know that Southern thing.
Yeah.
So your parents were big rhythm and blues fans growing up? Is that what that they listened to a lot?
Basically, yeah.
Yes.
Mainly my mother. She listens to a lot of rhythm and blues, Latin music. My father, on the other hand, is more rock and metal type of guy, though both of them are open to a variety of different genres.
Yeah. So as you started growing up and getting your own taste, did you end up kind of rebelling against your parents' music, or did you still embrace it but just expanded your palette, so to speak?
I don't think I rebelled against them. I'm not like any other kid in the movie might rebel and be like, nah, I like something more new. I've actually kind of embraced some of their classic sounds. Newer music, some aspects I am very interested in listening to. Some other ones just don't really catch my ear that I'm very interested in. It doesn't really give like I'm kind of looking for music that kind of has a retro vibe, kind of a classic vibe. And some things nowadays, I don't really think fits that, type of thing I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So,
WW, who are some of your favorite artists?
Does this matter for any generation, new or old? Well, in terms of older artists, I'm pretty sure my producer told you prior to me being on, I think one of my first biggest loves was the group Queen.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, great group. Recently saw the movie that came out in recent memory.
Yeah.
I have my own thoughts about that.
Yeah.
That's for another time. But that was one of my first loves. Eventually, just delved into a variety of classic artists.
What about, so I want to expand a little bit. What about Freddie Mercury and the Boys spoke to you? Why did you love Queen so much? What about it, kind of piqued your interest?
The fact that they had so many different songs. They were very creative, a lot of different genres. I won't say that on a philosophical way, the lyrics kind of, delve in. Some songs do, but some songs is just listening to it and you think, oh, this doesn't seem like the same band that would do this on the radio, especially since the first song that I definitely was exposed to them was not one of their heavier rock songs. The first song I definitely remember hearing them on the radio was Another One Bites the Dust, which has a bit of a more rhythm and blues type flavor compared to the earlier stuff. So,
almost. I mean, it has that almost, the whole 50s rockabilly, you know, it is kind of funny if you can get away with Freddie Mercury, like you could recognize the voice, but you think about, you know, Need Somebody to Love, and, you know, Another One Bites the Dust. You're like, really? This is the same band?
This is the same band.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, now the vocals are the same. And I love the idea that you know, the guys wanted to do different things. They creatively, you know, they didn't want to, you know, rinse repeat, you know, do things. And I think a lot of creative people are that way. I think that they love trying to try new things, explore new things. And usually, as you know, you have two kinds of fandoms: the fandom that sits there, no, I want this again, you know, I want this again. I want Bohemian Rhapsody again. Or the others are like, hey, I'm going with you wherever you go. Whatever journey you're taking, and I'm right there next to you.
Right. Which is kind of pretty much what had happened as they went on with their careers. Like internationally, I think they kind of got bigger, but here in the US in particular, looking back at their history, some fans were like, no, we want some of the more heavy music. And as a result, they kind of falled off a little bit and really didn't kind of come back into like top group until, you know, after Freddie Mercury's unfortunate passing in the 90s, sometime in the 90s.
So as a big fan, and as someone who does a movie review podcast, I've got to ask you. So, I mean, I was a casual fan when I went to the movie, you know, when I watched the Queen movie.
Yes.
The first thing that struck me is, damn, I forgot how many songs they had, you know, right?
That's what all people say.
Yeah. And then, you know, and I always take a grain of salt. I know that a biopic, you know, even if you're in the spirit of, you know, trying to tell the same thing, you always take things. So what you had mentioned, you had thoughts on the movie, and so I'd love to hear them.
Well, thank you. Well, mainly, like I said, the most striking thing is that it reminds you of how many hits that they had. Basically seeing how things were set up, how the songs were made, how the hits were made, how they just went out into live format. Basically, and also the visuals. I think just seeing like a big live audience is very surreal, which I know will probably appeal to one of the questions that I got about live concerts later. But and at the same time, it was a bit of a struggle knowing that looking into their actual history, you know, that some things are just over exaggerated and dramatized just for movie loving fair to be like, oh, that's what's going on.
But like, oh, wait, no, that's the wrong. So I'll give you an example from a Bruce Springsteen version. I went and saw the movie Blinded by the Light. Okay, great movie. Really captures this feeling of becoming, you know, involved with, you know, a new musicians, you know. So but there is a scene where the hero of the movie, a guy at school, gives him two cassettes. He gives him Darkness on the Edge of Town and Born in the USA. Okay. And so you cut through Monday morning, and our hero is seeing his friend, and he quotes lyrics from The River, which is not on either cassette.
Wow.
So I went and saw this movie. You know, I live in Dallas, Texas. So we had like 7 or 8 people that are all Springsteen fans that had been on my podcast, that all live here in Dallas. We all met and went to the movie together. And all of us, as we're leaving the theater, oh, that was great. That was great. However, how did he know the lyrics to The River when that wasn't on either cassette? So I said, oh, well, there's a deleted scene where he goes to the record store and buys another Bruce Springsteen. He buys the Springsteen double cassette, The River, and that's how he knew. So yes, one of my good friends is a big Queen fan, and he did talk about that, you know, especially the timing on some of the things in the movie was a little off. And if you're a purist, it's hard for you to get past that.
Right. You're loving, for 1 minute, you're loving the songs and the visuals, and then you jump into a different period and you go, wait a minute, that happened earlier, much later.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I want to know a little bit about, so when I saw the title of your Western Reviews podcast, I immediately said, is this a John Ford? Is this a John Ford? Like, are we talking about, John Ford and all these other, because I'm a big, I love a lot of the old classic Westerns, but I don't think that's necessarily what the podcast is about, correct, WW?
Absolutely not. You'd be wrong.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the podcast.
If I could delve a little bit about it. While it does have features of various Westerns that I've done, some shows and movies. I know I did a review of Gunsmoke and Bonanza, actually, both of those.
Okay.
A while back. Not a whole series retrospective. I feel like I probably could go on as an own show for that. But it mostly delves on the fact that I live and take on movies that have come out in the Western Hemisphere. We are in the hemisphere, so it's a little bit of a more of a geographical thing, kind of a play on words. So since I have that fact, I usually cover movies and TV shows from this hemisphere.
What made you decide you wanted to do a podcast, and why this topic?
Well, I've actually had a love for movies growing up, mostly that of the animation form. Kids love their animated movies, still do. And I was one of those. So eventually I just thought, as I delved into more live action things, I kind of got interested in the whole review format. Of course, I didn't originally started as a podcast. I was kind of like a clip show on YouTube. Just had various image stills and video clips from the shows and movies that I'm doing. And eventually, I just kind of took advantage of the fact that, I thought the editing would be easy coming in, but it's definitely not that. So I just thought maybe if I turn it into an audio only format, I might, have more of a success there. It might be less difficult in some aspects. And of course, I converted it into a podcast, and I've been doing that for a while now. I've, kind of delved into my own thing. The editing hassle still has not changed in some ways, but there's definitely a lot less pressure on my hands, not relying on video.
Yes, absolutely. What do you do this a solo, or do you have a partner?
I do this solo, the Western Reviews anyway.
Okay. And what like, give me some ideas of, like, how do you pick your subject? What do you decide you want to do this? What you want to talk about?
Well, I usually have a battle between what's trending now, what's something that I could sink my teeth into, try to give some bit of a constructive review of, hopefully something that can really keep on, my interest. So usually I stick onto that. At the same time, when it comes to classics, I do like, showcase those for those that are a little bit younger in the demo that might be listening in, that might not know about that to review. And some things in between that are still like up and coming, some recent show reviews and movies reviews that I've done. People really weren't confident, like, this is going to be a big hit or not. And neither did I, but I still took some of those on. So different things. Yeah,
because I was, I'm looking here. I notice you, one of your early reviews was Silver Streak, which I'm considerably older than you, WW. I can remember, I remember going to the movie theater and could not believe how funny that movie was.
Wow.
Just amazing. That the scene with him in the bathroom and that line at the end, well, where do you want to go? And Richard Pryor, well, I left my Jag in Kansas City. Him and Gene Wilder were amazing together. So
classic.
It appears you do a lot of thoughts. The latest episode you did, King Richard. We had watched that. My family and I all enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
once again, not sure because it's a biopic. There's probably some shades in there about
several shades.
Yeah. But, still
Needless
the
to say.
idea of, and what I always find interesting, and I'd love your thoughts on it, is that line between being dedicated and passionate to being obsessed, right? Like what is that line between, like, for this case, the Williams's, father, this passion about, he knows his daughters could be the best at what they do, and it turned out they were. But there are people that are passionate and spend money, and their child is good but not great. They're a good athlete but they're not a great athlete. They're
right.
So did you have any thoughts about that while watching the movie? Or that was one of the things that struck me.
Well, looking into the character personalities themselves, I was definitely coming into it like definitely something that I don't know much about. Sports is not really, well, especially tennis in particular, is not really one of my forays. So I was trying to come in to get some information about, who is this Richard guy? The only Richard I kind of know about is Richard Simmons or Little Richard, or but not Richard Williams. not the Richards we all speak of. But seeing his real, his character just go through with his daughters, trying to get them to be the best of the best was a very fascinating sight to see. I think the movie definitely did very well with trying to, see all the emotions between what the daughter's ambitions were and what the father's ambitions were. It's a very big stark contrast with that. And it's like a roller coaster of emotions. I think I really liked how the movie kind of portrayed, the bonds, how far a father will go to make sure his daughters are in line. Whether that is a bit with the upsets of, oh yes, this was me, I'm the father that did XYZ thing. But still, nonetheless, it tugs at your heartstrings with a variety of emotions. 1 minute you understand it, another minute you're a bit irritated.
It's a little and I'm sure you caught this, but the whole the Oscars controversy,
which I put out after the fact.
It is, and I think, like everyone else in America, I think if you had asked before this happened, a huge percentage would talk about how much they loved Will Smith, just, and it's regardless of the circumstances, it just is sad because I don't want to say taints, but it does cloud the experience of, winning this wonderful award.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was supposed to be the best evening of his life kind of got a little bit tainted. I'm not saying that he didn't have any fun.
Yeah.
We saw the videos, but
yes.
Just a little bit of a taint there. It was a very fascinating sight to see.
Yeah.
In real time and seeing all the reactions since then. So
So all right, WW, tell me about Indie Podcast Unite. May 7th is the event. You're here to talk a little music. We're talking your podcast, but also one of the reasons why is you wanted to promote this event. So tell me a little bit about what this is. What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, a while back, I came together with a frequent collaborator, goes by the name of Curtis Elton, who hosts his own podcast known as the Listen podcast. That's a bit more of a variety format, not exactly movies or music per se, which is why he's not here with me right now, plus the time difference. He's in another country. But we really want to just unite podcasts, of different, sizes, audience sizes, different genres, whatever they talk about, just to come together and showcase their talent, basically, what drives them to do their great podcasts, maybe some advice for up and coming indie podcasters that might not have that voice to or drive to do much just yet. And also have a little bit of fun conversation all in all. So hopefully this turns into like a recurring event that we can do with different podcasters that can come on from time to time, whether live or pre-recorded through the miracles of technology, and just be his own big thing for podcasts.
Yeah, I know one of the things you guys requested is for us to do a little clip just to say, hey, share a podcast story. And
Right.
so I recorded mine, sent mine in.
Right.
So how where are you guys going to show this at? What's going to be the format, and how do people check it out?
Well, we're going to be live streaming this on YouTube
Okay.
on the big day, Saturday, May 7th, 2 o'clock Eastern time, or check your local times if you're not in that time zone,
Right.
of course. But eventually, after being live streamed on YouTube, my producer says it's going to be on some more platforms. He's looking at Twitter, Facebook, Twitch,
Okay.
the whole 9 yards. But
Hmm.
not really confirmed yet, but I know YouTube is for sure the goal. It'll be available in audio only format in podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. So very looking forward to this.
So what other podcast have you lined up for this live show? And are you having guests joining you? Or are you guys doing a combination? Talk to me a little bit on what you're planning to do.
Well, we're going to have a variety of guests. Initially, when the recent announcement came about, my producer said that was about over 200 podcasters that were really interested in trying to come together and do this. Of course, we had limited, of course. We didn't want it to be too long of an event. But we're going to have a mixture of guests that will be appearing live. I believe there will be 5 or 6 of the podcasters a live time. There will probably be a revolving window of some special guest podcasts that will come in from time to time throughout the stream. And also, there will be, of course, messages and little bits and pieces from other podcasters, such as yourself, if you send it over, that'll be appearing throughout the show.
Okay.
Some pre-recorded bits.
Good. Very nice. Cool. Are you going to have any specific themes or topics, or you just kind of roll with different guests and sharing different stories?
Rolling with the flow. We don't have a specific topic.
I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. That's great. What have you learned about yourself as you've podcast, and what give me a couple of things you've learned from about yourself as you're doing this?
Well, it's always good to step outside of your comfort box once in a time. A couple years ago, I probably wouldn't have been, as comfortable stepping out and doing the podcast to be listened all around the world. I check the specs every other day.
Yeah.
But really good to, just use your creative force into making the best thing that you're comfortable with doing, regardless of what feedback you might get from it, X, Y, and Z. And also, utilizing your best editing and tech skills to just experiment, creative, do some things, not just stick outside of a box. Try to stick out, be your best thing. Try not to be similar to any other podcast. That's really just the main goal that I try to get down to at the end of the day. Be creative, be myself. Try not to be too similar.
Good.
Yeah.
And so remind me, what's the name of you said right now your music podcast is taking a little break, but tell me
yes,
what it was before.
Break.
Yes.
I think the 2 old guys have some extra gray hairs, but I'm going to bring them out now, give them a little bit of a shave. But Two Grumpy Music Snobs podcast. It's been a while. I can't even remember their names, but it's 2 old guy hosts. They're practically a parody of Music Snobs. They talk about their favorite artists, least favorite artists, kind of break it down. Talk a little bit about history, too, for those that might not know it, to the best of their abilities, and have some, humorous bits here and there. Just have a little bit of a great show, kind of like an intimate conversation sort of show.
Nice. Very nice. What kind of, as you're going forward, what are the plans for the podcast? What do you want to do, and how do you want to expand? I know, you've got this indie podcast happening. You're hoping to make some connections, but what are your ambitions, WW, as you grow as a podcaster and as a creative force?
Basically doing bigger and better things with the podcast, experimenting in ways that I don't think I've actually had previously up to this point. Obviously having big connections with podcasters that are coming up that would like to be featured on the show, because I don't really have many features at the time. If anything, I've probably been featured on other people's podcasts more, but mostly now it's just been sponsorships that are recent. But in the future, I would like to have more features, and maybe even delving into interviews and discussions of that sort.
Well, I'll throw it up, and if you want to have me talk about John Ford's Stagecoach or the man who shot Liberty Valance, I will join you, and we could watch this together, and then we could talk about, hey, a true Western Review channel.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So you've talked about Queen. What are other people that are playing in your, we used to say, your um, Walkman or your, MP3 player, but on your phone? What other music are you listening to?
A variety of older acts. I can throw off some random names. Some James Brown thrown in there, some old Godfather soul.
Yeah.
Who else? Little Richard. I'm doing an episode on Two Grumpy Music Snobs soon. When I get it back off the back burner.
Okay.
And some newer acts that kind of have that retro vibe. I've been listening to the recent Grammy nominated group Black Pumas. That's one I've been listening to, and musician Thundercat. Have some very retro, funky disco like type of vibes. And I kind of really like them for the fact that they are, kind of giving a tribute to classic music. Even Bruno Mars' little outfit group Silk Sonic, I know that's not going to be a full-time thing since he's his own solo artist, but again, very classic, very retro sounding. So I'm a big fan of those types of artists, that kind of give retro feels.
So I'm going to give you a shout out. My nephew, I have a nephew that lives in Austin, Texas, and they are, he is the leader and of a band called the Night Owls, Niteows, and they do this style. It's new music, but in the style of like Al Green and others that 60s 70s dance music. It's a lot of fun. I'll send you the link to their website. I if you like that, I think you will. It's very fun. It's very clever. They do a really good job. So you should check that out. That's
absolutely
good. Yeah.
Have to check it out.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit, live shows. Are you a fan of live music? Do you like to go? Of course, this is all pre-pandemic, right?
Yes. Well, to answer that question in particular, well, I don't really have much live music experience. A lot of the, folks I really listen to are either no longer living or really don't tour. If anything, a lot of the folks that I do listen to usually skip South Carolina. They like to go to neighboring states, like, hey, let's go tour in North Carolina, Georgia, Florida.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
They really don't come here as much as they used to back in, say the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
I think the only live concert experience I went to was like a free concert at a local state fair in the fall of probably 2012, 2013-ish. It was a gospel concert that was headlined by Kirk Franklin. That was a free show.
Okay, sure.
Usually they have free shows in the middle of the week. Some other artists, usually it's $10 per gig, but that was a free show, and I went there with my stepmother and her friends' kids, and we had a great time. I remember his little wish-washy about older things, but we had a great time for what I remember. But that was really like the only main live concert experience I've had. I went to other live functions before, but not that.
Yeah. So you've kind of talked a little bit about your planning to keep doing what you're doing, keep growing. So you're thinking you're going to want to bring back some of your music podcast.
Of course.
What anything else that before I get to the Mary question, which anything else that I should have asked you that I haven't?
I think you pretty much hit up on all the points.
Okay, good. All right. So hopefully you did your homework. If not, WW, I'll forgive you. What I end every podcast with the Mary question. So what this is Jay Armstrong, who is an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area, would teach. He would take the song Thunder Road by Bruce Springsteen, and he would break it apart as a poem. He would go through all the lyrics. He would talk about the imagery that Bruce does. He would compare it to Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And then he would ask his class at the end of the 2 days, does Mary get in the car? So WW, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Well, as somebody who kind of pays more attention to audio detail, It was
Yes.
hard to tell, but I went back and checked out the lyrics, and I would like to say I hope she did get in the car. It's a
Okay.
very moving song, a lot of different lyrics. I didn't really know because, like I said, it's kind of a very spur of
Yeah.
the moment. So I didn't really
Sure.
do much of my homework. Forgive me on that.
No, no, no.
But
That's okay.
you
Yeah.
know, uh, you know, he seems like a very motivational, inspired movie.
Okay.
Considering what Springsteen is singing about, laying down. He
Yeah.
wants to do things with you. You're all right with me, X, Y, Z. Come with
Okay.
me in this car. Hope you do. But you know, the
All
lyrics are
right.
saying
That's
one
good.
thing, and the audio is saying another. The last thing I hear is thuds. I don't hear a car door. I try to listen to audio details. So I
Very
hope she
nice. I
did.
like that. Yeah.
I hope she did.
One of my favorite answers is I had a guest who said, and it fits with your thoughts. He said it depends. He says if it's Bruce with the whole band, he gets in the car because if you listen to the whole band, there's a powerful ending, and
Yeah.
you have the intro. But if it's Bruce by himself, you just kind of hums toward the end, and that's him driving
Mhm.
away alone.
Yeah.
So that fits your audio thought. WW, this is great. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way they can?
Well, you can reach me out on Twitter at reviews_Western or on my Instagram page at Western Reviews Official for the Indie Podcast Unite. I believe you go by Indie Pods Unite. That's our account handle for both Twitter and Instagram, if we do
Okay.
have one of those. And of course, our YouTube channels for that. Indie
Okay, good.
Podcast Unite.
Yeah, so Indie Podcast Unite, it's going to be May 7th. It's going to be a lot of fun. Listeners, check it out. Go, you'll get to see hopefully my little snippet. You're going to have a lot of entertaining people talking about a lot of different subjects. So it's going to be a lot of fun. WW, thank you so much. This was a blast. I appreciate
No
you
problem.
joining me. Thank you so much. And if there's, keep me posted on anything coming forward, and we'll have to do this again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. Listeners, go get vaccinated, go get boosted. Let's be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, WW. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. I want and need your feedback. You can reach me multiple ways to tell me what you like or don't like about the show. You can reach out to give me guest suggestions or maybe to join me on the podcast yourself. We're on Twitter at SetListingBruce or at Jesse Jackson DFW. I have an Instagram, SetListingBruce or Jesse Jackson DFW. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/SetListingBruce. Go to patreon.com/SetListingBruce to find out how you can support the show, and we have several tiers of support. Please go to your favorite podcast player and hit subscribe. And tell a friend about the podcast because that is the way we're going to grow. If you're not tired of hearing me speak, you can hear me on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Charles Skaggs and I talk all things Doctor Who. The How Many podcast, where me and my friends Gary, Scott, Bob, and Jr. talk pop culture. And finally, my newest podcast, The Last Best Hope for Conversation, a Babylon 5 podcast, where Karen, Lou, and I are going through the TV show Babylon 5 one episode at a time. I am always looking for guests, so please reach out to me, setlustingbruce@gmail.com.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.